A long time ago, perhaps in a galaxy far, far away. No, not really. Talking about ancient Greece. There was a god named Apollo. He was kind of like the CEO of the gods. He kind of controlled everything up there in Mount Olympus. And one day, he meets a fine priestess. Her name was Cassandra. And she was really smart. She knew a lot about analytics and data. She loved numbers. And Apollo saw this, and he wanted to hire her. And he had to make a deal worth making. So he reached out to one of his friends. He knows how to make a deal. What do you think, Donald? You've got to give her 6 figures and a department 7 figures of BI tools and software. So Cassandra was convinced. And so, lo and behold, Apollo made her his chief data scientist. I don't know where this is going to go, guys. This is just all something I thought of that'd be pretty cool as a precursor to the predictive analytics tool. But here we go. So, Cassandra, she started in. She bought Alteryx, she bought Tableau. She started creating all sorts of cool analytics and dashboards, and she really put her heart on predictive analytics. Now, but as the true myth goes, Apollo gave her the power of prophecy because she gave him a kiss. That was the actual deal that he struck. So that's our modern day term for prophecy is predictive analytics. So, on they went. Everything was great. Her department was doing really well. But then one day, one of her analytical models outputted and told her with 95% confidence that Apollo was going to destroy her beloved city of Troy. So, as the myth goes, she spat in Apollo's face. Well, CEOs do not like to get spit on, especially in the face. But, Apollo looked at the data, looked at the analytics, looked at the situation happening outside the gates of Troy, and he didn't believe it. He didn't like it. He didn't like what he was seeing. He's a guy that's about talent and experience and strength. Well, he asked another buddy what he should do about Cassandra. So he asked his buddy, Charles Barkley. And he said, Charles, what should I do? These predictive models, I just don't understand what they're doing. It's a black box. I don't understand it. I'm spending too much money. Well, he told her what to say. Analytics is crap. Analytics don't work. Fire her. So he did. And as the myth goes, he couldn't take away her power of prophecy, but he can add to it. And so what he did was he went on a negative ad campaign telling all the businesses and the people of the land that analytics was crap, just like Charles Barkley on TNT, talking to his fellow CEOs. So Cassandra went on her way. But one of the next reports that she developed was this one, how the Greeks will destroy Troy. In fact, she used Tableau for that. Well, you know what happened. A lot of people just didn't believe her. And the modern adaptation of this is truer than you think. I mean, there are people that are spending, businesses and CEOs that get sold on a bill of goods by IT for millions and millions of dollars that may take years to implement. And finally they get a dashboard in front of them, and they can't get any value out of it. They don't even know what to do about it. And you've heard statistics as high as 50, 60, 80% of all BI initiatives fail. They go over, 80% go over budget, and so forth. So this was the modern tale that I found, and I tried to find something comparable to predictive analytics, and I think this kind of hits the mark. Now, as the story ends, no one believed her. She had really good predictive models. They went the other way, and Troy was destroyed. So, we call this the Cassandra syndrome. If you haven't felt this before, you will. Why don't they believe me? I've got all the data and analytics, but they can't make the decision based on it. So there's a lot of companies out there that are very data-driven, but they don't know what to do with the data. And I think that's our job, everybody's job in this room, is to help the decision makers use the data to become more of a data-driven organization. Okay, was that okay? Did that make any sense? Statistically speaking, predictive analytics is the #1 function of BI. Okay? based on people that have been using it today and planning to use it in the next 3 years. So, again, we have a predictive analytics breakout room, so if you want to kind of saunter down there and see what Michael's doing, that would be great. So, here we go. The second thing I've never done before, live model building. This is in the arena of people like, say, Joe, Mako, and others, but we'll see how it goes. We're going to do a case study on predicting the sales of lollipops at a fictitious company called the Uber Delicious Lollipop Company. Okay, you guys ready? Okay, here we go. So, the first thing I'm going to show you before we get into the actual model itself is the power of time series data. And this is kind of important because, you know, anytime you're doing some type of analytics, you really want to use macro or microeconomic data. And so just to really give you a quick understanding of the visualization that you'll need before you even embark on a predictive analytics project is to really have at your disposal the ability to click on different time series data and be able to look at things and visualize them, because you can run correlation coefficients, you can run models in a lot of different predictive models that you have from different software programs, whether it's Tableau, R, eViews, but there's nothing like the visualization of something to see if it passes the smell test, or in this case, the eye test. And so be able to build visualization dashboards that allow you to look at the data very quickly, and I'm talking about time series data, is very, very important. Okay, so that was my kind of precursor. Now let's go build the model. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a trend chart. Now, this is kind of like a cooking show where I can't do everything from A to Z, almost. You're going to have to trust me on a couple of operations, if you will, but here we go. So, after looking at your time series charts, and looking at correlation coefficients and causation correlations, we've decided that retail sales, just aggregate retail sales, is a great way to understand lollipop sales. So if we put the retail sales time series in the column shelf, and we come all the way down here, we have a couple hundred drivers in this little table. And we look at lollipop sales. We'll use 12-month annual growth. And then we'll put the date in the column shelf. Sorry. Date goes in the column shelf, and then the independent driver, retail sales, goes on the row shelf. And then what the dependent variable you're trying to predict will be the second positioned pill. Okay. And then we'll make this monthly. And then we'll create a dual axis by sliding that row into here. And a few other things we need to do. And the beautiful things with Tableau is they always have this include zero default check mark. So that's one of the things I'd love to be able to tell them to stop doing. And let's see here. This is the process, really, of looking at visualizations to make sure that you've got something that you can work with. Okay? So as you go through this process, you would end up with something like this. Okay? Where you would find out that you found that retail sales on 12-month moving average at aggregate yearly growth, and the same with lollipop sales, looks pretty good. If we want to hone in on kind of the current history, you can see that this is a trend line and a correlation you can work with. Okay? Now you have to find out how to create the driver, how to create the what-if elements of this model. Okay? So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a scatter plot. We're going to track every time the retail sales has come out with a statistic on the same concurrent month. We're going to look at how lollipop sales did. So the way you do that, okay, is we will take retail sales, just take the raw data, put it on the column shelf. And again, the independent variable always goes in the column shelf for a variety of reasons. Now we'll stick lollipop sales up in the row shelf. Okay. And then we'll put the date as the row line of records. And we'll make that monthly so we have a lot more data to work with. And then once again, we'll go up to our edit axis because this annoying includes zeros there. Okay? So now we've got a correlation. Now, there could be a lot of reasons why you're using this. There could be some times where your boss says, look, we really need to get a handle yesterday or tomorrow on a forecast. Can you give me something I can work with? And so you don't have time to build elaborate models. There's also occasions where someone from the C-suite will say, look, I really know and feel, I've been in this business 40 years, forget about the analytics, kind of all like Charles Barkley. But he will say, I really believe it's all about reach out sales or some driver. Can you build me a quick forecast model on this, what I believe is driving our business? And you can do that. But the one thing you need to do is build a scatter plot, or one of the tools is to build a scatter plot to really understand the relationship. Now, with any relationship, nothing's perfect, nothing's going to look great, but there are tools in Tableau to clean up the data. So here you see a lot of points here that may not make sense. And so one of the things you can do, and I love this tool, is you lasso some of the data points that may not make sense, and you create a set. And when you create a set, you can call this oddities or anomalies or something like that. And you can bring that out as a filter. I always default to a simple list of one or two things. And again, this is what it looks like with all the data, and you take out the anomalies and things like that. See the eye test? Which one is better? Right? So after a couple of configurations, I have to stick this in the oven and take it out for maybe 10 more minutes, right? You would get something like this. Now here, just stay with me here, because this is kind of like we've covered the first 3 steps. Now it gets a little bit crazy, but it's really cool. And you'll notice I'm bypassing the Tableau forecast tools for a lot of reasons. They're more of a technician's set of tools. You can't really use them in conjunction with what's happening out in the outside world and what's driving your business. It's more about trending the trend, if you will. I'm not a big believer in technical analysis. So you come up with a trend line, basically a relationship of the two variables you're looking at, retail sales and lollipop sales. And you hit this describe trend model. And I will zoom in on this because it's kind of small. See that? This is the area that is the secret sauce right here. Okay? The coefficients. Okay? I wish Tableau had a real cool, function you can drag onto a shelf and do what I'm about to do, but it's not that bad. It's like cleaning windows. It's something you don't want to do, but it doesn't take that long to do. So let's take a look. Now, my director of analytics, Michael Pun, doesn't like Mac for Excel. Hates it. We call it the easy bake oven version of Excel, but we still use Excel, mainly in the Windows version. But I like to use it because it's a little bit easier to use when it comes to quick prototyping. So this box right here, I took a screenshot of the coefficients and popped it into a simple Excel file, okay, so I can see what's going on with my coefficients. Now, I was planning to type this all out and do this manually today, and then I just, yesterday when I was doing the trial run, I'm like, forget about it. Forget about it. But this is literally the formula for a 3 polynomial trend line. And if we go back to this, you can create any type of trend line you want. And why is this important? Well, because, and I'm just going to give you a real quick detour into the creative analytics side. A lot of it's art, a lot of it's science. You'll notice the trend line, by just changing the matter of the degree, you see how the trend line changes? One's a little bit more conservative than the other, right? Well, this is important for the reasons of when you're discussing judgment. when you're in a meeting and someone said, yeah, we're not probably going to have a big year next year, you probably don't want to use a poly 3. You probably want to use a poly 2. This is how you blend art and science together. There's a great book by Nate Silver called The Signal and the Noise. Has anybody heard of it? Phenomenal book. It should be mandatory reading for anybody that wants to do any forecasting or predictive analytics. So, there we go. There you have it. Just a real quick primer on why subjectivity and consensus is important. So, this is the cool part. So, what we have here is the polynomial equation. Before we use that, I'm going to go back to my trend chart. Okay, let's check out something here. And I'm going to place a few things here. Make sure I've got the variables that I tested. Okay. And what I'm going to do, anytime you have a really good chart, by the way, this is probably, I don't know if you guys use this a lot. I use it like 50 times a day. Duplicate sheet. Do people use this a lot? Okay, it's like highly valuable. Just in case you do something, you're like, oh my God, what did I do? I forgot. And then you're kind of stuck and you've got to reinvent the wheel. Okay, so now we're going to build a model. So the first thing we want to do is we want to pull out retail sales. Okay, there are many ways to do this. We can stick it back in there, but not in 20 minutes. We're just going to build ourselves a real quick and dirty model. The other thing we're going to do is we're going to use some parameters. We're going to be able to tell Tableau what year in the future we want to represent our forecast. So we built a simple parameter using dates. Pretty simple. And then we're going to stick a retail sales parameter out on the shelf. Now, this is just easy. All you need to do is go back to your scatter plot, right, and kind of look at your range. Oh, okay, so we're looking at a possibility of retail sales ranging from 125 billion to about 190 billion, right, per month. Okay, and then our lollipop sales are ranging anywhere from 50,000 to 300,000. So that's how we. So these are the only two parameters you need. And now we're going to go back to the secret sauce. I'm going to highlight our polynomial equation, which gives us our forecasts. So copy. You'll notice I'm traversing back from Mac into Windows. So I kind of got a bipolar personality when it comes to both. And now we're going to create a formula. This is going to be the formula you'll need. So let's do this from scratch. We'll call this relative. I can spell correctly. 5. And one of the cool little features, I'm not sure you guys know about this, is 2 forward slashes. You know what that is? Has anybody used this before? Yeah, it's amazing. It's kind of like your little note taker on top, so it gives you a reference. So we're going to do that, so we have a formula just in case we want to reference it. Now we'll paste the formula in. We'll take out the Excel conventions of the equal sign. And then we're going to see that when I built this formula in Excel, used, I'll zoom in on this just to show you, I used kind of a cell as a placeholder. But what are we going to do now? We're going to replace that placeholder with, you guessed it, retail sales. Oops, that's not retail sales. And because this is a 3-function polynomial, 3-degree polynomial, we're going to do it 3 times. There we go. There's our formula. But we're not done yet. This is rather a cool little feature we thought of a couple days ago when we were preparing for this. We want to be able to control what data in the future we want us to visualize and save. So, if our parameter, our forecast date parameter, the date function, equals then that, and then you just do this. This is interesting. By the way, when you see this, the calculation is valid. How awesome is that? That's like the best part of working with tablet. Okay, so now I got my what if v5. So we're going to drag this formula out onto the row shelf. Okay, and see that little dot right there? Pretty cool. We're going to flip this marks card down here, and we're going to make that an obnoxious size, or big so you can see it. We'll go with the label and give it a nice green color, if you will, make it bold so they can see your forecast. And then, by the way, you need to do these steps first before you actually create the dual axes. We're going to figure out why the order matters, but the order of operations, I'm sure. And so we're almost done. Because now we've got this really cool what if that'll move, but the axes are all messed up. So the first thing you got to do, obviously, is sync the axes. But there's still something wrong. Does anybody know what? We've got our lollipop sales is monthly, and we've got our annual forecast. But this is easy now with editing in the shelf. So because your boss asks you to this, within hours or days, you're not going to create a whole other tree model or so forth. So you're going to just annualize all your monthly sales. Boom. Boom. There you go. So now, pull it up. And you've got a really nice dashboard with one driver. So if your boss says, we believe that retail sales are going to be 153 billion next year, and that drives our lollipop sales, it's going to be higher. You can tell them, him or her, what your lollipop sales is going to be based on a given date and a given single independent macro driver. Cool? Cool. Okay. I can't believe I did that. Okay. So just some final thoughts. Yeah, I'm psyched. Somebody grab me a beer. By the way, Michael in the back is sitting there with his hand on his chin going, I can't believe you did that either. So, some final thoughts. Why do we forecast? I'm going to kind of wrap this from the Cassandra Apollo myth to why do we forecast? And it's truly about minimizing your margin of error, optimizing decisions. Okay? And this is kind of a template, a prototype of a margin of error tool that we're using to present why it's important. No data, good luck. Okay, the standard deviation of being correct is going to be at least 8 standard deviations plus and minus where you want to be. If you start using data, but you don't clean it, and we work with a lot of companies that don't clean their data, but if you use KPIs, you're going to get a little closer. If you start cleaning your data, but you're still using internal data, you're going to have a higher degree of accuracy. And then if you start to use KPIs and what we call EPIs, external performance indicators, you're going to really start to see your forecast and your predictive modeling improve. And again, a lot of this has to do with the conjoining of analytics and judgment. So go read that book, Signal and Noise. But there's one more step that we found is tremendous, and this is a scenario-based optimized modeling process. And if I show you an example of that, so this was the simple model that we just built. This is a model that we built for a client that looks at apartment rent growth using 10 different drivers, all interrelated. So it's a rather elaborate model based on the one you saw, but it's fully functional where now you can start to ask a multitude of questions in combination to all these drivers and you will be able to see your results instantaneously. By the way, the green line is the actual historical rent growth for Orange County. Red is the model we built, and these are all the drivers that are driving our orange dot, forecasted dot. So again, not a black box. It's something that the boss, the C-suite, the decision makers can instantly grab onto, ask a question, and they can get an answer. And finally, just a couple of the books that have to deal with forecasting. This one right here, that's the Bible. If you really want to get into analytics, and predictive analytics, that is, that's the book. There's the Signal and Noise right here. Phenomenal book. Very easy to read, by the way. And then here's just some other books that, like I said, give me personally a more broad look at the world, both from a subjective, qualitative point of view and more of a scientific point of view. So, with that, again, it's all about creativity when it comes to predictive analytics, and kind of like this little comic. Speaks volumes. And finally, there's a white paper that I wrote called Creative Analytics. If you're interested, ask Rachel. We can download. You can download that. We'll give you the link for that as well.